Step Brothers, a comedy directed by Adam McKay, starring Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, Richard Jenkins, Mary Steenburgen, and Adam Scott. And the IMDb plot summary is two aimless middle-aged losers still living at home are forced against their will to become roommates when their parents marry. And
Great description.
it actually is a very good good IMDb plot summary right there. So this one I chose as the movie to me because, as I was saying, it took me a long time to kind of appreciate acting. One of the first types of acting or types of roles that I really understood the genius that an individual performer can bring is in comedies. I've felt first, and I actually kind of still feel this way now, that comedy performances are a lot harder and it's a lot more on the shoulders of the actor, right? Like you can give me a very funny script and I can perform it terribly and the jokes won't land. You can give, for example, Will Ferrell horrible material, but he will find something in that to make me laugh and get a performance across. So I do feel that, comedy acting was something that I first was recognizing as an art form. And this movie in particular really, I think, is so much so in the performances. Like, as the plot summary described, essentially Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly are playing like 40-year-old men who are actually acting like 10-year-old boys. It's not like a big situation where, it's a boy in a man's body. But they're acting like kids, but you also have to sell over the fact that they're 40-year-olds. Is this a movie you'd seen before, by the way? I'm just
Oh yeah, no, I don't remember when the first time I saw it, but this has been in one of those in the rotation kind of movies. Always loved it. This might be one of my favorite Adam McKay movies, and probably one of my favorite of Will Ferrell's as well, to be honest.
I think so too. Yeah. And do you kind of understand what I'm saying too about comedy? Like, do you feel comedy acting is something that is also very difficult and really is on the performance?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think comedy acting is difficult for all the reasons you said. I will say though that there's a bit of a nuance here of like delivering lines really well and making it really, really funny in the moment. That is one kind of good comedy acting. But I think to me, the harder thing to pull off is that not only do you make the lines funny, but you actually make the character you're playing a flesh and blood person.
Exactly. Yes.
And that to me is the difference between, say, Adam Sandler movies, where it can be a lot of lines delivered really well and you laugh. But for me, for it to be a true performance, it has to kind of ring, true.
Exactly.
That this person is a flesh and blood, three-dimensional person. There is, I don't want to overuse the word arc because, life always doesn't have an arc. And in my mind, characters in movies don't necessarily need to have an arc either for it to be compelling or interesting. But you have to be along the ride with them and believe. And so it has to, that's why it's a high wire act in that sense, because you're making the material sell, but you're also communicating and conveying a full real person. And
definitely.
These two totally do that, I think, in this movie.
Definitely. And that's why I really wanted to pick this one, especially even compared to the other. I mean, I'm a big Will Ferrell fan. He's done a lot of different works. But in this one, I think the job of trying to sell, like the scene when the parents are announcing they're actually getting divorced and Will Ferrell starts crying just like a little boy would, and then John C. Reilly's like, "Is it our fault?" Like you would expect a kid to do, right? But they're playing adults, and you buy both that these are immature guys, but they're still adults and they have all these responsibilities. It's a really tough thing to pull off, and you do see the evolution of these characters too throughout this picture, and they finally go off on their own and they learn to be responsible adults without losing that sense of kid. At the end, which actually brings me to another point too, that I think this movie, another reason why I chose it and why I also think comedy is so important, is you touched on this a little bit too, that the actors have to work off one another in a scene, and I feel with comedy even more so. And in this particular film, which was shot during the the writer's strike that happened in that time period, they had to do a lot of improv for that reason. I mean, Adam McKay does a lot of improv anyway.
Right.
But even more so because of the situation this was shot under. And I think that really does show the power of this actor, of they're really inhabiting this person so much that they don't have to listen to what the writer wants them to say. They
Right.
know that character and they can say it. Like that whole sequence at the end of the film when Richard Jenkins gives that inspirational, like, I used to be a dinosaur and I thought I could walk around and I have to put away my dinosaur ways. That was all improv. That was all Richard Jenkins.
Amazing.
Adam McKay's like, just tell a story about how you wanted to be a dinosaur at one point. And he came up with that entire thing. And that's a moment in the movie that I really like and find is very funny, but also kind of touching. But you can tell it comes from this father and it's adding character in here. And that was all Richard Jenkins. So it's all performance. It's all the actor. And I think improv is something that, yes, it happens in other types of films, not just comedies, but I think comedy, it's a lot more improv friendly, I should say, which makes it in a way a little bit more of an actor's medium sometimes too, because they can really put a lot of themselves into it as well.
I totally agree. But this again, it's the actors, but also credit to Adam McKay that
yes,
all of those things that you said can be true, but sometimes that can just go off on a tangent that I then sort of lose interest. I'm like, oh, this is just somebody having a great time, on stage and just sort of going off of it. And that's fine and fun to a point. But I think the beauty of this movie is that it's all reined in.
Yes.
And it all feels true. Everybody is, like you said, playing off of each other. Nobody is kind of just hogging the entire scenery, because that's also very easy to do when you're improving and just, getting those laughs on. That's all you're doing then. And I'm like, no, you're not in a movie. Go to a stage and perform your one act, thing over there. So
exactly.
There's a lot of that stuff that's happening here. I mean, I would also say, to me, actually, the MVP of the movie, to me, is John C. Reilly.
I was going to bring him up. Yeah, exactly.
Even funnier. And there's something very sad and vulnerable about him in this movie. And John C. Reilly, in general, is a better actor, I think, because he can bring a lot more dimensionality to his performances, and that really shows over here. And then the parents, both of them, this movie totally falls apart. Actually, they are the ones who are bringing it all down, grounding it. The central conflict, the plot obviously revolves around them too. They are kind of the key agents of change, if you will, but they also ground the entire craziness of the movie. So love those two.
No, definitely. That's a great call out to Jenkins and Steenburgen. But I agree with you. I think John C. Reilly really has the pathos to make you again, believe that this character can act this way, drinking some sort of like blue soda and eating like dino nuggets, even though he's like 45, but you don't feel like he's pathetic. It's not like a pathetic, man. It's just a very interesting line that he walks. And some great, one of my favorite moments of comedy, I guess, in the film is when they've already been moved out, and he's there doing his taxes in his Chewbacca mask. But he takes the mask off and just pauses it and looks at it and then sort of accepts the fact that he has to put silly things aside, and he puts it down and then he keeps working on his tax. That little moment right there, I don't know if it's improv or whatever, but the acting that he puts into that really makes you believe his entire character arc in one scene. Just brilliant. But I also second the fact that this is one of my favorite movies. I think maybe the best comedy of the last 20 years. Anchorman might be the only one that I'd put potentially in that contention. So I really wanted to make sure highlighting in at least my list comedic actors, because that was again the first sort of form of that I really got into.
No, I agree. I think my favorite montage from this movie, or I guess scene selection, is the interview montage.
Oh my God. Brilliant. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So brilliant. Yeah. I love this film. One day they have a real Catalina wine mixer now that they do every year in June. And I want to go at some point. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite parts of the film too is the Billy Joel cover band. Where they're like, oh, we only do 80s Joel, sir. So I don't know. It just gets me every time.
I agree.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.